I mean, when you go into audition, they say you're going to be the voice of the grid. What do you have in your mind when you're auditioning for something like that?
Well, luckily I didn't audition for this.
Oh.
I was offered it, so to me it was, when I got the offer I also got a little bit of, an attachment with a little bit of a video of some of the graphics that they had going on. I think I was brought in a little bit later when they already had some of the stuff. Quite often when you're doing voiceover, especially in the audition stage, you don't have anything. But even when you're doing the job quite a lot in voiceover, you're ahead of a lot of the graphics, so you don't have anything to go off of. So I think the relationship with the voice director and the writers and producers in the room, the sound booth with you, are really, really integral. I mean, in any acting job, it's a collaboration with the creators and the writers and everything, but I think with live action you have more to go on because you have the whole script. In a movie even takes that further than episodic television because you have the beginning, middle, and end. You know where your character ends up. In episodic television, you never really know what's going to happen further down the road. And then with voiceover, you don't really know what you're doing at all. You don't even have the script. So I don't know what the whole episode's about. I just know I show up and I get my lines for the grid. And many times when you're saying the line for the first time, it's being recorded. The first time you're reading it, it's being recorded. So you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants in many ways. And then really you relate a lot with the voice director and the writer in the room, and they fill you in on what's going on in the world that they're developing right then.
I've heard, I'm also a fan of Mass Effect. You did the voice of Edie, which
Yes.
seems strangely kind of similar. Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of distinguish in your mind, I guess, those two roles?
It was funny because when I first got the grid and heard about the grid, I was like, well, that's very much like Edie. But I think more Edie in Mass Effect 2 than Mass Effect 3, because in Mass Effect 3 she took on a body
right.
and sort of started evolving a little bit more with kind of discovering a little bit of emotions. And I'm very analytical and trying to figure things out. So I see them as different. I certainly see Edie more as a being, and I think maybe just because she was, even though in Mass Effect 2 she was a sphere, she was that sphere. And then in Mass Effect 3 she was the sphere and then this body that she took on. With the grid, I don't really have any, I don't see her as a being. I see her as literally the voice in the computer that talks to you, or the voice in your car, the OnStar, the voice, the Siri. I'd like to know who Siri is, So that's how I approached the grid, was very much a mix of OnStar meets Siri meets public transportation voice. Right. And we played with it in the beginning too. It was like, let's do her a little bit more sultry, let's do her a little bit more clipped, let's do her a little bit more just pleasant. She's just your OnStar voice. And then they settled on what, when they're hearing it and they settle on what they want, then you kind of go from there.
Thank you. How much time do you spend in the recording booth for this? And what's it like in there? Is it fun? Is it hard? Is it a long time there? Or?
The grid has actually been the quickest job I've ever done. With typically when you do a voiceover job, when you're doing video games and things, you're in there they do 4-hour voice sessions. And after the 4 hours, when I do Sarah Kerrigan, Queen of Blades, and Edie I could handle the 4 hours pretty well, but with a lot of the other roles when you're doing, and I assume the back in the page role and things are like that as well in this, because you have to do fight sounds and you have to yell, you have to be a lot more active with your voice, and it'll just wear your voice out after a while. Even doing live action too, if you're doing a lot of stunts and things like that, you come home. I just did Criminal Minds and we had a stunt fight, and I came home all hoarse because you're fighting and you're exerting and you don't know really how hard that is in your voice until, but it's really apparent when it's just your voice and this amazing sound equipment, and they hear everything with it. They know if you had one too many glasses of wine the night before because you're more dehydrated and your voice makes more clicks, even though they're not perceptible to our ears. The recording picks it up, and you're like, yeah, I did have some wine last night. Yeah, I was going to suck on that green apple. For some reason, green apples and voiceovers are like, it's a godsend for voiceovers, because if you just take a bite of green apple, it makes the clicks go away for 10 minutes. So
Makes the clicks.
yeah, you don't even hear them talking, but if you hear your voice, if you hear them, they'll play it back for you, and you can hear a click. It's a slight. I don't know what it is, but it's just, I guess, one of those things. The green apple for some reason works.
Tricia, how aware were you did you remember seeing Tron on TV, or, I mean, how aware were you of that whole mythology?
I actually completely brand new to it. I grew up without a television and very rarely went to movies, so from what I should have been watching growing up, I didn't see any of it. So to me, coming in, I rely a lot on the writers and producers to fill me in on not only their vision, but also the past history.
You've been a part of so much great sci-fi already, so what's it like now to be a part of another iconic sci-fi franchise with the series?
Oh, it's so much fun, and I really do appreciate the genre and being involved with it. I think you get some really great stories, and you're not limited to our own perception of life and what's going on in our planet when you're playing roles, obviously playing a human being in our world. So being in science fiction, and there's just the vastness of what you can do, and it's really so imaginative that and that's maybe part of the reason that I just kind of stick to mine and don't try and go into it with too many preconceived things, is because I feel like the people writing it know a heck of a lot more and a lot more imaginative than I am. So I really go with their vision of things, as opposed to when you're on screen yourself and you're playing a lawyer or something. You certainly take into it a little bit more of your own life experiences and things, as opposed to playing a robot or playing the grid voice or things like that. I really rely on the creators of the game or the show.